It's Friday, August 30, 2002. I'm talking to Pat Ahrens over the telephone. She's at her home in South Carolina.
I'm taping you now, and if you say something about Rounder, I may quote it. I'm writing a PhD dissertation, is what I'm doing.
Neat.
So is that?
I love it.
And Ken and his partners have been real cooperative. I think they appreciate I think they like the idea that somebody's taking a look at the label.
Well, they aren't the only ones. That's real dear to my heart too. I just congratulations on your choice.
Good. Well, anyway, what were you telling me? I was asking about 65, 66, 67. Right. We were trying to figure out the year they first went down to Union Grove. Now, they can't remember. They're trying to place it.
Well, good for them, because I've kind of been racking my brain since you called, too, and I got out all the correspondence that I had from them, and would you believe not one of the letters had a year date on it? A couple of them had a month date, but
yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Well, that was their casual style back then, and they didn't think these things were important.
Right.
And
well, we all didn't. It was life at that point in time. But what I was going to tell you is, if you care to have them, I would be just real happy to copy all these and send them to you.
I would love them. And, they've let me see correspondence on their end, but their correspondence, and you won't believe, for a company that is as... Have you ever been up in their offices?
No, I never have.
For a place that has become such an institution, it looks like... their hippie digs of 30 years ago, just bigger. There's just stuff all over the place, and it's like...
Can I say that doesn't really surprise me?
I'm working with the faculty member, and when I went up there the first time, he said to me, try and look at every piece of paper they'll let you. Now, that's a joke if you see the place. And so I mentioned that to Bill Nowlin, and he kind of looked at me and laughed, and he said, okay, and when you're done, throw it out for us, will you?
I wouldn't. That kind of sounds like him.
So there's stuff all over the place. So if anybody's going to packet of letters about one interchange, it would be just wonderful. I mean, that would be...
Well, it's not that many. It's like 5 or 6 or whatever.
Oh, it's great.
I just thought, for old time's sake, I'd be glad to do that for you.
I would love to. And we're...
neat in that it has their very first logo of the guy with the hat on.
Front
of the old-time phonograph.
Right, okay.
Just for that alone, stuff like that kind of does it for me.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I love that. In fact, I've traced some of those things as I can try. Just looking at their labels, they've got all the records in their warehouse. Those are organized in their offices, and I've looked at those things and just seen them, and just the different things that they put on their records, their jackets. That sometimes in some of the early ones, they were an anti-profit collective, not a non-profit collective, mind you. They were an anti-profit collective.
Well, I always heard that they wrote grants,
They did for some of them, yeah.
To fund the company was what I was told. Now, I didn't know, how Grapevine is. I don't
not to fund the company, but to fund certain projects. They wrote a grant, for example. They did, I'm not sure if I'm saying that, they did the early days or early years of Bluegrass Series, and they got a grant to do that, to go out and interview all these folks who were on these records that were owned by Dick Spotswood. Do you know him?
I know of him.
Yeah, so Dick owned all these old 78s from people who'd never kind of jumped away from making singles in the 1950s. That was their whole recorded output, a few sides here in the 50s, but they were great bluegrass, and so the Rounders wrote a grant to get all that stuff put onto albums.
Which is so important, because what is really, kind of hitting home with me today is how many of these people we are losing.
Oh, yeah.
Well, of course, with Pappy dying last year.
Right.
And that type thing, but it's just like right and left. You hear of that all the time.
Right. Now, how did you meet them? Did you meet them at Union Grove?
You were going to ask me that.
I knew.
I'm going to tell you what I think.
Okay.
Yes, I remember, and it's certainly not gospel.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what happened is, when I was writing the Union Grove book, I saw some of Bill Nolan's photographs, which I thought were just absolutely incredible, and I used a great number of them. He was very gracious to me at that point in time, and I'm assuming that somehow they had that Pierce Van Hoy had an address on Bill, and I actually wrote to him, because I do have one letter that says I evidently had gotten him a press pass to get in.
Okay.
And he said he would bring his camera, and if you'll give me a list of the shots of people you want, and da-da-da-da-da. I think that's how I first, met them.
But this was before the label, wasn't it? Because you've got a photo on the first record, yeah.
This would predate the label itself.
Sure.
That's what I was going to tell you. Now, in my new book that I've done on Snuffy and Pappy, I actually have I printed the page of their flyer of the first 5-rounder albums, which was George Pegram, Spark Gap Wonder Boys, Joe Val, Snuffy, Pappy, and Country Cookin'. Have you ever seen one of those or not?
Not the flyer itself. I have a number of the records. No, not that flyer.
Okay,
no.
Right. Well, I've included the flyer in that book. And now on the very first one, the George Pegram Lot 1, I gave Bill the picture of George Pegram that's on the back of that.
Yeah, I've got that right here.
Right, And so what I'm saying, I think I first corresponded with him about the pictures about Union Grove.
Okay.
And then now...
But Van Hoy had his name somehow, which Van Hoy had his name somehow. Van Hoy...
Yeah, somehow... Some of the pictures were identified.
Because they always describe themselves as hangers-on, very shy, not getting in there with the promoters at that stage, not...
Well, I just looked at those photographs and realized they were so much a cut above, and I went through everything Pierce had, and I went... back then, I looked at the old microfiche.
Right.
I spent days and days and days in Statesville. And kind of became friends with one of the newspaper reporters, and one day, lo and behold, he just went down in the basement of the newspaper office and said, look, here's a bunch of old photographs. If you want to go through them, have at it, And it was just because we kind of got to be, speaking to each other there. And so I went through the entire box of the Statesville, papers in the early years. And, of all the things I saw, Bill's pictures were just absolutely such a cut above. There was no question about what I would use.
And he tells me he knows when he got his camera.
So he does. Was it 70 or 71?
No, it was earlier. His first pictures were from 67.
67.
But, so the big debate was that their first year at Union Grove, and then they're going 66, 65. We think it's 66, but I'm hoping that if I look at the lists of people in your book...
Right,
and
that's what I was going to tell you.
Yeah.
I have it right here before me. What I did basically was print everything that Pierce had.
Okay.
In other words, I went, and he literally handed it to me in a shoebox. I will not lie to you. It was in a shoebox, the pieces of paper that were left, from the earlier convention.
Sure.
But I printed everything I could get my hands on. As far as I know, what I printed was what existed.
Right. Well, the lists from those years that we're debating, 65, 66, might, and we don't know, it might jar them to saying, that's it, we were there that year, I remember,
Okay, well, I have it from 65, I have it from 66, and I have it from 67.
Yeah, and they know it was one of those years.
The winners, let's see, I do not have the winners from the year 65, I believe is the way. Let's see here. Yeah, I do. I have 64's winners, but not 65.
Right.
So that just means that Pierce didn't have them.
Right.
That, they disappeared. I mean.
But you have the competitors list. Yeah. So that's.
Whatever. So anyway, I thought you would be interested in that.
Very.
Like I say, I think what happened in my mind, and I've thought about it since I talked to you, in 1970, I took Snuffy and Pappy up there to Union Grove. They performed, and they were just a tremendous hit.
Okay.
And this guy that wrote for the New York Times, I had been talking to, and he asked me, who he should write about, and I said, hey, obviously these people, they're authentic. They're the real deal.
Right. Sure.
You can write about whoever you want to, but these folks are the real deal.
Sure.
And I introduced, Snuffy and Pappy to them, and he did. Wrote an article which appeared in the New York Times.
Oh, I can go look for that even here.
Deal,
I can go look for that. That would be great.
I'll be glad to give you a copy.
Oh, if you've got it, that's fine. I'll just.
You have a copy of it. I sure will.
Boy, that's.
But anyway, I'm a collector too, by the way. So I've got just all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, oh, I understand. I got all kinds of stuff, too. My wife tells me.
You don't play, too. Do you play out of curiosity?
I don't play. I'm kind of like the Rounders. I don't play. None of them play anything. And I just, you know, I'm a record freak, and then I got to work, and I'm in my 40s. I say I'm getting a PhD, but I was in business for many, many years, and I was a record freak, and I started collecting stuff about folk music, I started getting into collecting original writings and things like that. So I latched on, and I said, you know, I have a reasonably indulgent wife. I knew I could teach some while doing this, and you know, she's always worked, even when I was running a business, she was working, and so I said, could we maybe take a little diversion here while I try and write this dissertation and see if it's publishable or things like that. And she was really...
I'm just thrilled you're doing this. People don't understand how important it is, you know, that things be written down.
Oh, I know. And so
I really don't. You're at the University of Austin now. Let me ask you, do you know Kitty Ledbetter?
Yeah. She's the editor. She's at Southwest Texas.
Yeah, well, she is my dearest friend. In fact, I was just there this summer for their wedding.
Well, I communicated with her. The interesting thing is she wanted me to write an article for her. She's editing a Texas, what's it called? I got a copy of it right around here somewhere. Here it is. Here's issue number 1, Texas Music History, the Journal of Texas Music History.
Right, okay.
She's editing that, and she asked me, I met her at a bluegrass festival. I'm on the board of a local bluegrass society, and I met her at our festival last October, and then through a chain of events, she asked me if I'd write an article on Rounder's work in Texas, and she had wanted it, I forget if it was August 1st or September 1st, but then she upped the deadline by a month on me, and I said, Kitty, I just can't make that. I'm going away with my family for most of the month before that earlier deadline, and I just can't make the earlier deadline, and I'm going to have to defer this. So that's where we stand. But she was real. So we had.
Glad you know her then.
Yeah.
That's awesome. How did you get my name though? That's curious.
I got your name in 2 different ways. The first way I got your name, and I just made a mental note, and I marked it in my log where I keep things. I bought a huge stack of old Bluegrass Unlimiteds on eBay. And I went through them in tremendous detail, indexing things that I thought would be of interest to me in writing about Rounder, and other things that were just generally of interest. You wrote a letter.
I don't think BU's ever been indexed. I typed the indexing for Blue Skinner News, which no longer exists.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I did. A guy that used to work for the Smithsonian, Pat Mahoney.
Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Sent it to me, and I typed it. One thing that I gave the McKissick Museum.
Man, do you have that? Is that available?
I did that, but like I say, I don't know that BU ever has. I think a certain number of years possibly
have
been, but I'm not.
Well, this is very much idiosyncratic, and it has to do with what I had and what my needs were. But one of the things that I noted was a letter you wrote back in the 80s in which you mentioned your book. You said, I've written this book. I could pull it really quickly if you wanted it, but I could...
Well, now, I do have before me also, I wrote like kind of an epitaph when Union Grove ended.
I'm not... Let's see. Well, here's your letter, May 1980. Pat J. Ahrens Striblin. And you just mentioned... I have it here somewhere, but I'm looking at my log right now. Anyway, I made a note. I said, this is interesting. The Rounders...
That is, somebody had written in wanting to know if the book was available.
Okay,
Does it have like a picture of the cover?
I don't remember. I've got the magazine, but it's in another room. And any event, then more recently, there was a little exchange about Union Grove on Bluegrass L, which is the internet discussion list about bluegrass. And somebody mentioned that you wrote this book, and they printed your street address. Which, I don't know. I could find that, too. But
that is so interesting. I know I just did an exhibit at the State Museum here.
Uh-huh.
A man from North Carolina called me and said he saw a picture of the exhibit on Bluegrass L, and I never could get anybody to copy the thing for me, and I was about to die for it.
Let me see.
I've not found one soul who can find that doggone picture for me.
Well,
and I know it's the truth because several other people called.
Well, I can tell you who posted your address on Bluegrass L in just a second, as soon as this slow document here kicks up. Let's see, here we go.
I'm just curious of whether or not I know them.
Right, and this was in response to Ken wrote a long description of a couple of stories from then, and then Tut Taylor chimed in.
Right,
and
I've written a book on Tut that we haven't printed yet.
Oh my gosh!
A couple more people to
You're awfully okay.
And hopefully, before I die, we'll get that accomplished.
Cool. Let's see. Okay, this is a simple message. It has your name and address, and it was posted by someone named Ben Boatwright Jr.
Oh, yeah, he's here in Columbia.
Okay.
Oh, I have to take Ben cake for that. Oh, that's true.
That allowed me to write to you.
Oh, that is really interesting.
So it started right in your neighborhood, ended up here.
Right. Well, what I was going to tell you, though, the round of story, the best I can remember.
Right.
Right. I had taken Snuffy and Pappy up there, or I asked them to come perform for me.
Right.
And they did, and were such a big hit. I think that's where Ken and those heard them.
Yeah, it's true.
And then when they came down here to actually make the record, they stayed at my house that weekend.
Okay.
And so, that I specifically remember, but I think that's when they first actually heard Snuffy and Pappy live.
And you had known of them. You must have met them a few years earlier then. Does that work?
Yeah, that's what my thinking is.
Yeah. Now are you about the same age as they are? They're in their mid to late.
I'm older. I feel that I'm 60. I'll be 64.
Okay. Well, they're about 58, so a bit older. You're half dozen.
Well, we're close.
Yeah. Now, what did you? I don't know. What did you think of them when you first saw them? Do you remember that at all? Do you have any memory of them? They're. I got to tell you, they always wonder about this too. They don't know.
Isn't that funny? Yeah, you always do. I didn't think anything out of the ordinary.
Okay. Is they?
I didn't perceive anything.
Their perception of themselves is that they might have been so alien to the locals down there.
Well, I'm one of those people who've just always been drawn to creative people.
Right, yeah.
And they're always, quote, as far as I'm concerned, different from square one.
Sure. I once asked him what George Pegram thought of them, and Bill. I asked Bill this, and he said, "I don't have the faintest idea."
They were leery because
the
of
the
education gap there. That would be my best guess.
The Pegrams were leery, you're saying, probably. Yeah.
That I would think they, now. And you are taping this.
Say what you wish, only what you wish.
But, I think, how can we put this? I think the authentic people were sometimes, quote, suspicious.
Sure.
Of, well, if nothing else, because they was Yankees.
Right. Well, they had awfully long hair, and they traveled with Marion, and they looked...
Well, I ain't touching that with a 10-foot pole.
Well, did they all play into it? They must have all played into it.
I'd rather not
okay.
venture to say anything.
Okay.
But I didn't think anything
right.
of it myself. I didn't. But I probably, some of the old-timers, they were Yankees, and that's it. I mean, all those people were just lumped together in one sum. Nothing against them. It's just that they weren't, from the same place.
Right.
Because all those people that were from the same place, of course, went to those conventions. And today it's hard to look back because Fiddler's Convention so preceded the Bluegrass Festival.
Yeah.
I mean, they were the things. You had three things that happened during the year. You had Asheville, which was always billed as the folk festival.
Mm-hmm.
Then you had Galax,
right.
which was, more old time.
Right.
And then you had Union Grove, which was wide open everything.
Mm-hmm.
But those were absolutely the highlights of the year. I mean,
okay.
as far as the musicians were concerned. And the deal was, I mean, back then that was, pretty hefty prize money.
Right. What were the prizes? This must be in your book. We don't need to go.
Yeah, you can
okay.
just look. But
I'll take that out of there.
I printed a lot of that, too.
Yeah, okay.
But like towards the end there, like the first prize for the fiddler was $1,000.
Yeah, well,
that's a fairly good amount of money.
Well, a lot of people would want to win that today, without a question. Yeah, that's still
That was the thing, but the prestige that went with it, I mean, it was a big deal. It really was. It was a big deal, and those were the three that were the most well-known. And, of course, when Union Grove got, like it was, you literally had people from all walks of life there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was an amazing thing. To me, it was amazing that all those people could come together, for 3 days
Right.
and, play music, and it worked.
But I gather it wasn't until 1960 that you really started getting a lot of the young Northerners there. Is that
It
more?
was much past that. I
Really?
would say somewhere in the early 70s.
Okay, because some city bands, like the Greenbrier Boys, won
Right, yeah.
years
They
earlier.
came down, oh gosh, now see if I know.
It would have been 59, 60, 61.
I think that was along about 67 or...
Boy, I think it was earlier, but I've got to...
Was it? I don't, I'm not good
Yeah.
with dates.
But they were, they were a special case because they were
Right.
they were real motivated and really explored
Well,
beyond
that's a long way to come, too.
beyond the norm. They explored, yeah.
Very much so. Let's see, the Spark Gap Wonder Boys.
Those were in 70 or 69 or
But I
70.
have to stand here and read to be able to tell you that.
I understand, yeah, I
Pretty
understand.
much in here.
Yeah, okay. But now, what was George Pegram like as a performer there, and how much?
I never knew him as a person, but he
Mhm.
was very much a crowd favorite.
How did he appear? Can you give me a description? You did see him, I take it?
Tall and bony and skinny.
I've seen the pictures. Did you ever see him perform at the festival? What
Yeah.
kind of? Was he a comic type guy, like a Dave Macon character, or?
I wouldn't say that.
Okay.
No, I wouldn't think so.
The only thing Bill described me, Bill said he was really used to projecting. He didn't he didn't know about microphones in listening rooms
Right,
and things
well,
like
that's
that.
the way those old-time guys learned.
Right.
They wanted to be heard, so they're up there screaming.
Yeah.
type thing. I don't know, those people had an independence about them that's hard to explain to people, but that's one thing I see in quote, mountain folks, if that's the kind of terminology you want to use. They have an independence and a self-reliance that, is kind of foreign to a lot of
Mhm.
people. And in some ways it makes them a little more clannish and a little more different, but they're just, used to doing things for themselves, and they knew how to do so much.
Right.
That was the other thing. It wasn't just that they made music, they knew a whole lot more about nature than,
Sure.
the average person did. But I'm getting way off the track here.
What?
What else do you need to...
But you say that Pegram was a real crowd pleaser? Yeah.
Yes, I definitely remember that.
Mm-hmm. And how did you come to? You didn't know him. You said you didn't know him personally.
No, not personally.
Okay.
I knew of him, but I didn't, personally. Can't say that I knew him. No.
Sure. Now, how did you meet Snuffy and Pappy?
Well, all right, this is the story. I moved to Columbia. I had lived in Athens, Georgia. My ex was a veterinarian that graduated from the University of Georgia, and I hung out with a group of artists down there and people that played music, and they had always told me, in fact, my best friend was the sister of Donnie Bryant, the banjo player that took Earl Scruggs' place when Earl got hurt in an automobile wreck
Right.
out of D.C. Donnie was an excellent banjo player. So they introduced me to the music, and when I moved to Columbia, they said, all right, one of the best banjo players there is lives there in Columbia. And I said, what's his name? They told me Snuffy Jenkins. So
Okay.
I got up one morning, I baked cake, and I pressed down the Central Chevrolet, which was where Snuffy worked,
Uh-huh.
And I just walked right up to him, and I said, all right, Mr. Jenkins, I've heard you're a good banjo picker, and I wanted to come meet you. And we shook hands.
This is what year?
I didn't know what to think about me.
This is what year?
1965.
Okay. And you're a banjo player yourself?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, but I have the book that Snuffy, I took with me Mike Seeger's New Lost City Ramblers songbook.
Okay.
And Snuffy signed it for me that day. And I said, where are y'all going to be playing, and da-da-da. And that was how it all started. And then we just ended up, such personal friends over 32, 33 years, whatever.
Uh-huh.
It was just like, they were a part of the family, and I, wrote some things about them and all that sort of stuff. So,
Now, so you kind of engineered the record that Rounder put out. Not, I don't mean. I mean you.
I was there when
you facilitated it. But you brought them together.
Well, I don't know if I'm going to claim any kind of credit for that. I just was there with them as the record was being recorded.
But didn't you make the introduction? Didn't you?
As far as like I say, thinking back, I believe that when they came to Union Grove in '70 was when Ken and those met them in person.
Through you?
Yeah.
Right.
What they had heard of them before that point in time, I don't have a clue.
Right. So they met them through you, and that's what they tell me. I mean, that's
what they say. Well, good.
They say, yeah.
Glad we agreed then.
Yeah. Although when it was initially done, you know, and I was looking back at my tapes, it was initially done as a woman from South Carolina, and then. Well, because they don't know what I want. You know, we're going through a million things, and then finally I say, well, wait a minute now, who's this? Because I want to...
Well, I have not sent Ken a copy of this new book on Snuffy, which I've been going to. That was one of those round to it projects, you know, when
right.
I get around to it. I need to actually send them a copy of it.
He had mentioned to me the other day that he had, I guess he tried to email you and it bounced back. So
right.
I guess
I don't have email. I just type on my computer.
Okay, so he must have had an address from the past, or that he thought was appropriate, but it doesn't work.
Right.
Okay. So you were there when were Snuffy and Pappy excited about making the record with these?
Definitely.
Really?
Yes, indeed. They were just real cute that day. In fact, I even wrote down a couple of the things that they said in the studio that day. And just, you know, just because it was so cute, like Snuffy said something to Pappy like, you know, you leave me standing on one note here. And Snuffy says, well, I'm a busy man. No, Pappy said to Snuffy, I'm a busy man.
Right.
And vice versa. And then Pappy says, well, how am I going to do that? And Snuffy said, well, Pappy said to Snuffy, well, you just make a banjo sandwich and stick it in between there, you know, trying to work their stuff out. In other words, that was their down-home short.
Right.
That was the way they talked to each other, and I just thought it was cute, so I put that in the book.
Sure. Were they comfortable enough with these northern kids with their long hair? Now, Bill had told me that he was invited to a barbecue at Snuffy's house.
Right.
You might have been there.
Yeah,
and it's funny.
Well, one thing that happened that really was, to me, funny, I had made homemade peach ice cream, and they had a tune that was untitled, and they ended up naming the song that, which I thought was, you know, kind of a hoot, but it was over the peach ice cream.
Right.
So I thought that really was cute.
Now, Bill had said to me, I asked him about, you know, I asked them a lot of questions about how they found some of the Southern Mountain people, and he.
Boy, I bet that's something.
Well, they you know, it varies a lot from the people, but I remember him saying, well, we went to Snuffy's house, and it looked like a house that any of our families could have lived in. It was I remember having the impression that he struck me like a banker, and he said, not Pappy, but Snuffy did, and he didn't really know what he did.
Right. Well, both of them worked at a place called it was called Central Chevrolet.
Uh-huh.
And Snuffy sold cars.
Okay.
And Pappy was the used car manager.
I see.
So they both worked at Central Chevrolet.
So they were both of pretty much the same economic class then, I gather. Yeah.
They were both Masons.
Mm-hmm.
And they just, you know, it's remarkable that any two people could have played together that long, and they were almost complete opposites in a way, because Snuffy very seldom played unless he was performing on the stage. He very seldom played. And Pappy was the complete opposite. I mean, he'd sit on the stump in the woods and play with anybody that came by.
Okay.
I mean, that was just their personalities.
Right.
And the difference in the two of them, Snuffy was a little bit harder to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
And Pappy was very much open and would, you know, have talked to anybody that ever asked him anything.
What did the record do for them personally? How did they feel it once they had that in their hands?
I think they were very proud.
Really?
I really do. I think they were very proud. And I think it helped revive their career after that, very much so.
Well, I was going to ask you that. What did it do? And this may be in your book. If it is, I don't need to...
Yeah, I think I maybe touched on that. I'm not real sure.
How much did it really provoke them to work, either psychologically and realistically, commercially, economically? Did it do it both?
Oh, I think it very definitely was an influence there, and I think because of that being available, they got more jobs because of it, and much better jobs because of it, and it helped them. It helped people realize that they were authentic because they had a pretty daggum good track record.
Right.
You know, that went all the way back. Did you ever hear Byron Parker? Did you?
No, I don't.
Okay, well, the first book I did on them, I did in 1970, so actually what I need to do is probably just Xerox you that because there are no more of them.
Okay.
That's the only way I could, provide you with that. But they were big deals in this state. They were, quote, stars, as far as that goes. In fact, I'm really proud Larry Klein and I had nominated Pappy for the Governor's Award for the Arts. We nominated him, if you can believe, the same month he died. And he did get it posthumously.
Cool.
But we are absolutely thrilled because every year when that comes up, there's going to be Pappy's name.
Yeah.
So the people of this state actually recognized that, and then when Snuffy died, the General Assembly actually had a 2-minute word of prayer in Snuffy's honor. And that's a pretty heavy deal when the legislature of the state stops and pays tribute like that.
Right.
And I actually have that document in the book.
Oh.
I've got some weird things in there, but I had a purpose in my mind, behind all of them.
Right.
And doing it, but they were big stars down here. They really were.
And where did they play? Did they play locally after the record came out? I mean, how far afield did they go?
Churches, you name it. They did a lot of charity work. They played at the Veterans Hospital like once a month for, I couldn't even tell you how many years.
And you think the record really sparked a lot of this?
Yes.
Okay.
I think that very definitely did.
Did they, I guess there wasn't much opportunity to go afield then. There wasn't really any folk revival left by the mid-'70s.
It all kind of happened at once. Now, there was an article in Esquire magazine that I think at that point in time did as much for the banjo as anything had. And Snuffy and Pappy's picture was in that article, and within the body of the article, they also had a very small discography. They, along with other people,
This was in the 70s?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a copy. I can send you a copy of that.
Boy, I'd appreciate that, too. I will, of course,
It's one of the first times I remember an article like that having a discography, because back then that was a word that most people didn't even know.
Right.
Type dealy, and I thought that was, to my mind, that was very important.
Right.
And it listed the Rounder album.
Huh.
And that, that to me, that was the first national publicity, if you will, that I remember. State and Southeastern were one thing, but that to me was national. This was Esquire magazine.
Right.
And it happened to be one that President Kennedy's picture was on the front of. So.
Oh, gosh.
That, and there was an article in, the Playboy article did not mention them, so.
Mm-hmm. It was about the banjo or the convention? What was that about?
Pardon?
What was the Playboy article about?
It covered, I'm trying to think, I believe it was the Berryville Festival.
Okay.
I'm not real sure. I'd have to look at that again. I haven't looked at it in a number of years, but I believe it was Berryville that it covered.
I see.
But it was also one of the first articles that was written, on bluegrass music. And of course, now Snuffy and Pappy were old time. They always call themselves old-time country.
Sure.
Even though everybody, interchanged the words there, and
Still happens. Now, they did a second Rounder album, didn't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was called Crazy Water Crystals. Now, the photograph on the front of that album was actually shot in my backyard. I am proud of that. It was shot in my backyard.
Now,
Crazy Water Crystals.
I guess if I've got this right, I think the Snuffy and Pappy album Rounder 5 was the first.
That's the one with the watermelon.
Right, and it's the first one in which they actually rented a real studio. They said.
Oh, really?
Were you in a studio for that?
Yes.
Yeah, that was the first time they actually went and.
So there are they weren't actually in the studio. I didn't remember that.
Not the Rounders. No, they did. Let's see.
Oh, you mean the Rounders?
It's the first time that the Rounders had rented an actual recording studio to do a record. Yeah, I don't know about. Yeah.
Well, now that's interesting because in one of Bill's letters to me, he does say we have. Let me see exactly. Oh, you can never find anything when you need it, but he does say we have the money. All right, here it is. P.S. We already have the money set aside to issue the album, so it could actually come out pretty quickly, like maybe by the middle of August, if the taping works well.
Yeah. Well, they were real proud of the fact that they had a studio, because it kind of meant to them that they were a record company.
Bucks back then.
Yeah, they had done it in, like Spark Gap Wonder Boys, for example, was done at a college radio station.
Oh, really?
And they would go in when it was unused, and they were all students or new students,
right.
and so they'd get friends to let them in the studio.
Well, how many people had sense enough to do that back then?
Oh, a lot of things. They have, yeah.
That was very wise.
Yeah. So
Very wise.
now, how long did the session take on both of those records?
Best I remember, they were in there. We went on 2 different days. Now, unfortunately, I didn't write that down anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember us going over there 2 days. Now, how many hours they stayed each day, I don't know the answer.
And that was for the first record. Were you there? Were you there for the second record's recording? Or?
Yes.
Okay, and same type of deal. Was that done?
I don't have any notes. I'm pretty sure I don't have any notes from either one of those sessions.
Was it done in the same place?
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to qualify and say yes. I'd have to look and see.
Right.
If that's on. It was Joel Johnson's. Was the name of the man that owned the studio.
And was that down in Columbia?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I believe it was actually West Columbia, which is a suburb.
I see.
But I think the official address may have been West Columbia.
Right.
That's been a lot of years ago.
I understand.
I know I'm one of those people. If I say I'm really paranoid about saying something wrong, I'd rather not say anything at all than to say something.
Oh, well, I got to tell you, we've been spending a ridiculous amount of time with this 65, 66, 67 thing. I finally decided I've got to, I've got to cut it at some point and say if we can't pin it down, it's sort of immaterial, perhaps, in the broader scheme of things.
That's what I've had to do with a lot of people because, you start looking for dates all kinds of ways, like Roman numerals, dates are weird things, but once you examine any kind of document for a date, and then when the people themselves are involved and they don't remember, the best number you can come up with, as far as I'm concerned, is about as good as you can do.
Sure. Bill, to make you laugh, Bill had said to me, I know that the first time we hitched down there, we were put in jail for a night in Rising Sun, Maryland. So you might be able to check the jail records. I said, Bill, I'm not going to try to check 35-year-old jail records in Rising Sun, Maryland.
I don't think you want to do that. I'm sure they suspected they had drugs.
Yeah, who knows what they suspected. But in any event, these are the limitations. But I have a feeling that seeing the competitor lists might help them. And we're down to 1 year, and I'm personally, for a variety of reasons, I'm personally convinced it's 66. What is causing them hesitation is that was about 6 weeks before they graduated from college, and Bill said,
so what were they?
could we really have done that 6 weeks before our college graduation for the first time? And then he says, well, we could have, I guess, but I just don't remember it that way. But anyway.
I'll sure be glad to shoot these books.
Yeah.
The Union Grove one would be 25.
Okay, let me just get this down.
The new one is 20.
Okay, and you need shipping, and you're making some other copies for me, which I would appreciate.
Oh, no big deal on that. I don't know how much it'll cost me to mail the two of them together now because I haven't done that.
Right. Well, let's see. Union Grove is 25.
$1.50 to
Snuffy is 20.
But I haven't mailed a Union Grove one in the...
Well, you're going to make... Well, I'm thinking what I could do is add just an amount to this, and generally it costs... What does it cost to ship a book? $3 to $5 or more? Is it?
Would be plenty.
Well, that's a piece. That's for one book. How about I add $10 for shipping. Is that fair?
That's too much.
Okay.
I
$7.
will do it for sure. And as far as the copies, I'll be more than happy to do that for you because I'm just real glad for them to be used. That's
All right. Well.
That type thing. I think that's wonderful you're doing.
Well, I can throw in something for that. So let me just handle that here because that's I don't want you to go.
Yeah, I'll just tell you, it'll be probably Wednesday before I can get these mailed because
That's fine.
This Labor Day weekend.
No, I understand.
The post office is closed, and the whole 9 yards.
Well, let me send you. I'm going to mail you my check, so you can. That you should have that then by then, and that's fine. I'm comfortable with that. And let me give you my address, but it will be on the check and on the letter.
Okay.
So let
Well,
me.
it's on the letter I have from you, right?
Oh, is it? I don't even know. I think I didn't. Oh, it is. Yeah, 1307 Wilderness Drive. Yeah, it is. Okay.
And if you lose my phone number, because this is an interesting thing, I'm in the Columbia phone book under Pat. Nobody could ever spell Ahrens, so I'm in here under P-A-T-T last name P-A-T. Pat.
P-A-T-T last name? Okay.
Pat.
Okay. Do you know that the Rounders used to take out a business listing was more expensive, so the Rounders used to take out a residential listing in the name of Rico, R-E-C-O, Rounder, which would appear in the book as would appear in the book as Rounder Rico, R-E-C-O.
And everybody would see Rounder. That is a coup maneuver.
Yeah.
That really is.
Well, I'm very grateful that you called me as quickly as you did and talked to me.
I got excited when I got your letter. I just, I love anything like this, and anything else that I could, possibly help you with. And I don't know that I would know anything else you need to know, but give me a holler.
Oh, Pat, you know what I want to do? I want to put a big box of stuff together and fly to your house and show you a big box of stuff and have you show me a big box of stuff because I love that. I just love that.
I know Gary Stanton was the first folklorist that the state of South Carolina ever had.
Uh-huh.
And he knocked on my door one day. A fiddle player, it was a friend of mine, had given him my name,
Right.
He just knocked on my door one day, and finally, after about 6 hours, Gary looked at his watch, and he goes, "Oh, my God, I've been here for 6 hours. Am I boring you?" Gary, I've waited all my life for somebody like you to come in the door,
Did you ever hear of a man named Archie Green? He was a folklorist.
Yes, I am familiar with his work, and I've read it through the years, but I never met him.
Well,
I did on one occasion meet Gus Meade.
Okay. Now I used to live in San Francisco for many, many years. That's where my children were born, and my wife and I got married and stuff. And Archie Green, who's been retired for many years now, but still writes books.
I was going to say, is he still alive?
He is still alive, and he had a book come out a couple of years ago. He's got another book close to coming out. His health has been poor, but he's hanging on. I'm going back there October. I went to him once. I steeled up my courage, and I was still working in the city and was not in academia, and I just had all these interests, and I got turned on to some things Archie Green had wrote, and somebody said to me, he lives right near you. He's a really friendly guy, and my God, I waited so long. And then finally I called him up, and I said, I have no reason to do this, but can I come over and talk to you about some of the stuff that interests me? And he said, oh, come on over. He gave me the time, and he talked for about 5 hours.
Nice. Did you get to tape any of it?
I did a lot of it, yeah. But the best thing was I used to visit Archie, and he'd let me stay there for a long time, and he'd tell me stories of his exploits and people and what have you. And I taped a lot of it. And he'd always talk for a very long time. He'd always welcome me, and then he'd always end the meetings instantaneously. Like he'd be going, you'd detect no change, and then he'd say, well, we're done. Get out. And he'd throw me out the door. It was like, I don't know what it was. And then I knew things had turned. One day, I was over there, and I was sitting in my usual spot, and he was sitting in his usual spot, and he's talking to me. And then I sensed it coming, and I knew, and he said, and he did something he'd never done before, which made me feel I'd arrived. He said, well, I'm hungry. Let's go in the kitchen and see what I've got.
Oh, that is cute. That is really cute. Well, I'm excited. I belong to an association down here, the South Carolina Bluegrass Association, and we're bringing down Dr. Bill Malone.
Oh,
whose
okay.
work I've known all these years of my life.
Well, yeah.
Here September the 14th.
Well, you're in for a treat. I have read his book, too, and I saw him talk at a seminar he did outside of Austin a few years ago. And he was just very, very entertaining. He's a good speaker. He punctuates it with music. He might do his own. He might play some tapes. I don't know which way he'll go, or both. But he's just a very good presenter, and I think everyone's going to love it.
I'm so excited about his coming. I really am.
And you know, he's steeped in the stuff, not from study, but from birth.
Right.
So
it's going to be interesting for sure.
Cool.
Well, maybe one day I'll get to meet you too.
that would be wonderful. Pat, thank you so much.
Good luck on,
Thank you.
on everything you're doing, and I just wish you the best.
Thank you. Then I'll get this out to you, and I appreciate this.
And I too.
Okay, bye-bye.